Thank you very much, Madam President. I appreciate the conversation that we had regarding the amendment that is now the bill, and I want to just reiterate the comments of our Senate Minority Leader, who suggested that this bill is good and he's in favor, and so am I. But it's just a start, and I just want to take that conversation just a little bit further than that. Just noting the first section of the amended bill is all about how the Commissioner of Emergency Services and Public Protection shall consult with the police chiefs, institutions of higher ed, and any other entities the Commissioner deems appropriate to develop, coordinate, and implement a plan to promote the law enforcement profession. And I'm okay with that, certainly. I think that it's a good idea to try and find a way to strengthen and bolster our ranks of law enforcement professionals in the state of Connecticut. Because let's be frank, they've taken a beating in recent years. And I really want to just talk about, I think, the reasons for that in what I consider are more realistic terms. The bill is fine. The bill goes through a number of different, iterations of creating task force and working groups and conversations that are going to implement ways to reach out to people in different communities to get them involved and consider law enforcement as a profession. And I think those things are all great and positive things. But let's be real here. The reason why the law enforcement profession is declining, let's say, in the state of Connecticut and maybe around the country is a combination of things. Number one on that list is, and when I talk to my friends that are police officers, they share these thoughts with me, and that is that they don't feel as productive as they once did. They feel as if their job is becoming more and more difficult, and there is much less satisfaction on a day-to-day basis about accomplishing the perception of the job, which is to actually make our streets safer and to fight crime. I think the other part of this conversation is really about the way law enforcement professionals are viewed by a large percentage of our society. And it's very unfortunate, but I think that there are more and more people critical of law enforcement today than there was maybe a decade ago. Both those things, I think, are the largest contributors to why we have bills like this before us. And I just want to address this issue kind of head on, because I've watched over the last decade or so as this body, the Connecticut General Assembly, has passed bill after bill that has undermined the rule of law, undermined law enforcement itself, and has led to the situation we have now, where I believe morale has declined for law enforcement officers, and the desire for people to choose that as a career is also declining. So let's just go down memory lane just briefly. I was first elected in 2010, same time as Governor Malloy, and one of his first policies that he enacted back in 2011 was Public Act 11-51, which reinstituted the Risk Reduction Credit Program. And this is a program effectively that allowed inmates at various correctional facilities to receive good time credits to get out of prison earlier. And I'm not an expert about this. I wish my good friend, former Senator Len Suzio, was here, because this is a guy who really dug deep into this program and discovered all of the aspects of how the Risk Reduction Credits program operated, whether it was actually functioning properly, whether the inmates were actually getting credit properly, or they were getting credit merely for signing up for a class without ever taking it. And ultimately, he's the one that did all of the research about people being let out of prison far earlier than they were intended to based on their original sentence, and ultimately going on to commit more crimes. And the one crime that he often pointed to, and I'll point to today, was a situation where there was somebody let out of prison who went, I think maybe the very same day or the next day, something like that, back to Meriden and killed someone in a convenience store. And that became kind of a rallying cry for people that opposed this policy. And I know former Senator Suzio made a big issue out of that. But that program still exists, as far as I know, and we're still operating under these parameters. And year after year, I've introduced legislation that would carve out certain types of crimes from eligibility, and yet those bills are never even taken up. The majority, by virtue of their majority, is rewarded with the chairmanships of each committee, and those chairs decide what bills are offered up for a public hearing and what things ultimately get a vote. And sadly, those proposals, when I put them out there, are denied. They're denied a hearing and they're denied a vote. And that's too bad, because I believe the people of our state deserve to know who's in favor of rewarding criminals by giving them time off after they've committed serious types of crimes. In 2012, the legislature passed Public Act 12-1. 12-1, that means it was the first bill signed by the governor into law. And that was the one requiring expanded traffic stop data. I don't want to say that this is a bad idea by any stretch. This is a bill designed to crack down on potential discrimination and racism. But what I think it did is I think it demoralized police officers who felt that they were being second-guessed about the legitimacy of their traffic stops. And there are perfectly decent cops out there who just trying to do their job, who are not thinking one iota about discrimination or race, but yet they ended up having to perform this chore, which only complicated their lives by putting them in a position to ask for this information for every traffic stop. Also in 2012, the state of Connecticut repealed the death penalty prospectively. That's a whole conversation unto itself, but I'll let that one go for this moment. In 2015, Public Act 15-2, this legislature passed what they called at the time the Second Chance Society. And this was effectively a bill that empowered the Board of Pardons and Paroles in the state of Connecticut to grant parole without so much as a hearing. It allowed for an expedited pardon process without a hearing unless the victim requested one, and eliminated a lot of mandatory minimums for certain types of drug crimes. At the end of the day, though, it's being more and more soft on crime. You see every step of the way, every year or so, we would have a new bill that undermines law enforcement, the rule of law, crime and punishment in our state. Also in 2015, we passed as a legislature, and I say we, I mean the legislature as a whole. I voted against each one of these items, and the vast majority of them passed on party line votes, with every Democratic lawmaker in favor and every Republican lawmaker in opposition. But in 2015, 15-183, this was the Raise the Age bill, which increased the age from 14 to 17, the effective age for transfer between a juvenile and an adult facility for serious felonies, limiting prosecutions for repeat offenders, and effectively compromises laws that effectively hold what I consider to be hardened criminals, regardless of their age, accountable.